Hey folks, Dustin Zarni here. A special midday commissioner in a car here on Wednesday because once again I couldn't figure out how to get that done yesterday when I was traveling back from Albany. But welcome back to Commissioner in a Car and happy Fall in Love with Your Party Day. I know many of you think it's Valentine's Day and that's the holiday that we should be celebrating, but no. The holiday I'm celebrating is the party enrollment change deadline. And that's today, February 14th. It happens every year on February 14th. So what is the party enrollment change deadline? Well, as you know, this is a presidential year. And it really doesn't matter whether it's a presidential year or any year. A few years back, though it goes back to a presidential year, a few years back in 2016, during the presidential election, New York really got put on notice for our lengthy, what we called the sequester. And that was that if you wanted to change your party and vote in a primary, you had to do so 25 days before the previous general election. And back in 2016, that was the Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio primary. And a lot of people didn't know about this rule because what that meant was really it was almost a 1 year long sequester because, you know, the general election happened in November, 25 days before November was in October. And the primary, the next primary that would happen would be the following September back then. So it was about 270 days of before an election. You had to change your party to vote in a party primary. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack back from some of my friends on here who don't believe that you should have to be enrolled in a party to vote in a primary. New York is what's called a closed party state, so tough. That's the way it is. That's the way it probably will always be. Maybe not ever, but in the foreseeable future, in New York, you have to be enrolled in a party to vote in their primary. So what it meant is that well before the primary was even known about that might happen, you would have had to switch your party enrollment. And the reason that happened, actually I'm going to keep going back in history here. The reason that long sequester happened was back in the Tammany Hall days. It would keep people from changing their party registration right before the election, being paid off by union bosses or party bosses or their business owners to change party to influence elections when they weren't true members of the party. So that long sequester had been in place for a long, long time. However, in 2019, the Democrats took over the New York State Senate. And by doing so, they also, enacted a lot of reforms. And remembering all of the consternation that came in 2016 with all the people who wanted to change their party to vote in either the Republican or Democratic primary, Assemblyman Jay Jacobson, and I believe it was Senator Zellner Myrie, but I can't remember, on the Senate side, they wanted to change the party sequester and make it less of a party sequester. One of the things that made it less was the moving of the primary from September to June. However, and that was done in 2019. However, the party sequester still stayed in place where you had to change your party enrollment by December or 25 days before the November election. So instead of 270 days, it was 200 days or something like that because the primary moved 2 months earlier. So it was a little bit better, but not much. So then they decided that they wanted to at least have the party enrollment change date be in the same year that the primary would happen. And they finally settled on a date, February 14th. And the reason they settled on February 14th is not because of Valentine's Day. I think it was a happy accident. But every year on February 21st, we have to pull our enrollment numbers to get ready for petitions for the March petition deadline. So they set it on February 14th, thinking, it's 1 week before that February 21st deadline. And they did a very unusual thing. They set it not on a roving calendar. A lot of times these registration events are set on like 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before the primary date, which keeps moving around on the fourth Tuesday of the June or whatever, So, but they set it on a certain date, and that certain date was February 14th. So every year, no matter the year, February 14th is the party enrollment change deadline. So if you want to change your enrollment, let's say you're enrolled as a blank, and you want to vote in the Democratic primary, you have to do it by February 14th. The same with the Republican primary. Now, this is still well before you know what the primaries are in many cases. We know that what the presidential primary is on April 2nd, but the June primary, we really won't know who's actually running in those until, around April, because that's when they turn in petitions. But the reason they're making you change your party before you know what's in the primary is because they want to make sure that you're truly enrolled and want to be enrolled in that party. That's the philosophy behind it. Whether you agree with that or not, that's the philosophy. They don't want people just switching into a party just to vote in one race if they're not really a member of that party or really feel they should be a member of that party. So today, February 14th, is the voter enrollment deadline. However, it is a received by date. And so what does that mean? That means that your enrollment change form has to be received today by your local board of elections. So if you haven't changed your voter enrollment, you have one opportunity by midnight tonight. Well, two opportunities. You can either come down to the Board of Elections, 1000 Erie Boulevard West, is Onondaga County Board of Elections, or if you're watching this outside of Onondaga County, but somewhere's in New York, go down to your county Board of Elections and physically fill out a piece of paperwork before they close today at 5 p.m. Or you can go online. There's online voter registration. But don't do it through the Department of Motor Vehicles. The enrollment through the MyDMV, that actually had to be done yesterday because they transmit those enrollments the next day to the board, and those enrollments have to be received by the board today. So the only way to do this, besides physically going down to a board of elections, is to go to the online voter registration tool on the New York State Board website. You can find that directly at our website at Onondaga County at onvote.net. It's right up in the top. You can click on it and take you to the online registration. You can change your registration. You can check your registration to make sure you're already in the party that you want to be in, but it has to be done by midnight. And the reason that is allowed is because when an online voter registration form is received, it's directly transmitted to the New York State Board of Elections, thus received by a Board of Elections office, not the Department of Motor Vehicles, and is allowed today. So if you want to vote in the April 2nd primary, got to do it by midnight tonight. If you want to vote in the June 25th primary, you got to do it by midnight tonight if you're not already enrolled in the party. So get that done. So that's the party enrollment. That's why we call it Fall in Love with Your Party Day, because this is your choice. So if you want to vote for Joe Biden or Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson has dropped out, you can do so. You want to vote for Nikki Haley or Donald Trump and the Republican, you can do so. But you have to be enrolled in their parties by midnight tonight. So some news dropped yesterday while I was in Albany on redistricting, so I'm going to change topics a little bit. The New York State Independent Redistricting Commission announced that they have a tentative deal of congressional maps, and they'll be voting on that at 2 o'clock Thursday. But they have not released what the maps are. Beggars can't be choosers. So we will find out what those maps are after 2 o'clock on Thursday. This will be the final set of maps. If there is a bipartisan agreement, then more than likely we will see the legislature move pretty quickly to adopt those maps, so we can start walking petitions on those on February 27th. There's always a rub, though, right? By waiting till February 15th, I believe what the commission was trying to do is figure out what was happening with the New York 3 special election. And waiting for that to be finalized before they released new maps, so as not to confuse voters. However, the legislature is planned to go on break next week. They're on break along with spring break, or the midwinter break that most of the children are on. I'm going on vacation that week. So there's a lot going on that week. So they're not planning to be in session. So the question is, when will the legislature vote for the map? Will they stay late Thursday night? Will they come back Friday before the vacation? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. So we're going to have to see. I was in Albany yesterday. I was talking to many different people. Nobody seemed to understand what the maps were yet. They've been kind of kept under very close guard. And that's partly responsible for the responsibility of that was really the New York Post, those bastards. Because 2 years ago, the media was given maps and it was embargoed, which meant that the maps cannot be released by the media until a certain date. And this is a standard practice for the press. But the New York Post published them early, and so now the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission is apparently not releasing the maps even to the media. So we have no idea what these maps are until after they vote. As I've said on this podcast many times, I'm not a fan of the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission process. There's a lot of good people on there, but I think the process is bad. I think it's not independent. It's political appointments. It should be citizens, and it should be a more open process than it is. However, this is the process that voters have chosen in a constitutional amendment, and also that the judges on the appellate court has said needs to be followed. So we will have new congressional maps. We will see what changes they bring, and we will roll with those punches. That's a bit of news that will affect the June primary, because we don't know what the congressional district here in New York will be, or in central New York will be. But and I'm not going to get ahead of the skis. I'm not going to get over my skis on this. I don't know what they are either, so I'm not even going to speculate. But next week, I will do a commissioner car only on the new maps. But speaking of next week, I will not be in Onondaga County. I will be in Texas. I'm on a planned vacation, a family vacation that has been put off several times due to hand recounts, and so I am doing it now. But of course, we're going to have new maps during that, so I'm not going to take any time off from the content. I will do at least one commissioner in a car sometime next week when we get a little bit of idea of what the maps are. But of course, I'll do some posting about it as well. So that's happened, and we are, so party changes. Want to get it done? Get it done by tonight, midnight. Online voter registration through Board of Elections website, onvote.net is your best way to do that. New congressional maps. Thursday, the New York State IRC will release their maps. If it's a bipartisan vote, it just needs a vote of the legislature to become law. I expect that to happen pretty quickly, and we'll have maps ready for the petition period that starts on February 27th. And then finally, you know what? I do want to talk about one other thing. We had nominations. Party nominations have been happening over the last couple weeks. And there's always a lot of confusion on party nominations and what they mean. Local county parties can nominate voters or nominate candidates for local office. However, they don't have direct ballot access, which means that nominating candidates, just like any other candidate, have to go out and get a number of petitions to get on the ballot. The advantage of getting a nomination from a county committee means an instruction to their hundreds of committee members to go out and walk petitions for you. That's a big thing, especially in a big race like Congress. John Mannion won the Onondaga County nomination for Congress, and Chris Ryan won the Onondaga County nomination for SD 50. All the other nominations that were announced last Thursday, they were uncontested races. However, the you may have seen in the paper that Madison County nominated Sarah Clee Hood. So how can you have two different nominated candidates? Well, county parties have their own rules and their own ability to endorse candidates. And for races like Congress or SD 50 that cross county party lines, there's no established precedent for having a convention of all the party committee members from the different counties get together. So it's up to each county party to do the nomination. But once again, it doesn't mean anything legally in the sense of they don't get ballot access. They just get, it's basically telling the volunteers of those county committees to go out and walk petitions for it. That's the thing that it means the most. I mean, there's some prestige to winning the nominations, of course, but I will note that in Onondaga County, the people who have been nominated have lost in primaries, and sometimes more often than not lost in primaries. That doesn't mean that that's the case for John Mannion or Chris Ryan. It's just the simple fact that most, that more of the party nominations have lost in primaries that have been challenged in primaries. Now, many party nominations end up not being challenged in primaries, and that's the benefit of the party nomination, is many people feel they can't get the signatures without the party nomination unless don't challenge in the primary. So there is an advantage politically. It's just there's no advantage legally and with election law. And county parties can make up their own rules on how to hold these elections and nomination because they are private entities and don't have and don't have direct ballot access. So those things have happened too, and we'll see more. I think Oneida County is meeting tonight. We'll see more nominations. Ironically, some of these county nominations may be voting on a congressional race that they're not actually a part of by the end of next week. So we'll have to see how that goes as well. So that's all I got to say on that. Thank you so much for tuning in, Commissioner Carr. I will be on vacation next week. I'm hoping to get back on my content schedule. I've been so busy with all the changeovers at the Board of Elections, but also starting my informational trips up to Albany and my budget testimony. It's just been hard for me to get back on my Zoom and Zarnies and my weekly wants. But my goal is, when I get back from vacation, I will do a Commissioner Carr when I'm on vacation, but when I get back from vacation, I will get back onto my thrice weekly content with Commissioner Carrs on Tuesdays, Zoom and Zarnies on Fridays, and weekly wonks over the weekend, usually Sunday, because there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of data that we haven't discussed. So I'm not going to promise to do one this weekend. If I get one out this weekend for the weekly wonk, great, before I go on vacation. But more than likely, I will not. So I will, or the next weekend, I'll do a Commissioner Carr next week to talk about the congressional races. But and no Zoom with Zarnies. I'm going to try to actually be on vacation, but I'll be working throughout it because of all these things that are going on. So thank you very much. Go to DustinZarny.com to like and subscribe. You can subscribe for free, get information about all the different things that are going on my content, but also media and election news. So take care. Bye-bye.